I, I can be heard. Thank you. Hi. So I'm James Dailey. Today I'm wearing a couple of hats. I'll kind of take one hat on and put it off, take it on and off as I go here. So first, a little bit of history. I started a project called MiFos in 2002, which is a core banking system initially aimed at the microfinance market. We replatformed that as a headless application, so API-driven bankless banking application in 2010, and then we contributed it all to Apache. Why did we do that? We wanted to have a wider adoption path. We wanted it to become more appropriate for all sorts of organizations. One of the interesting things about Apache is that it's got a very particular way of doing open source. And so that added some discipline to it. It also created a lot of additional friction, but I think by and large was a good move. I guess the key thing here to sort of point out is that MiFos continues to exist as an organization. MiFos has some other pieces of code, but the Apache Fineract project is actually the back-end system. It's the banking application behind MiFos. Just to sort of put a little bit more on this history here, Wave 1 was microfinance and SACO digitalization. We had a number of companies, a number of efforts there. Wave 2 was banking modernization. For example, in the East European Bank, one of the implementations was to take like 30-year-old mortgages and put them into the MiFos Fineract backend. Gentera in Mexico, NovoPay in India. We had a number of innovations that were building on top of our core banking platform. In kind of our wave 3 was when we started to get into payments, and I'm going to quickly get into why this is relevant here. But the notion before this was that these were systems that were isolated. They did not have any connection to the payment system. They were systems of record for the microfinance operations, which couldn't really move money except on us. On-us transactions were possible, but moving money out took a lot of work. You had to do additional integration work. So in 2015, I started working with the Gates Foundation on payment aspects of financial inclusion, a project called the Level 1 platform. That eventually became Mojaloop, might be some people here who've been familiarized with that. The design principles were, I think, things that everybody here would recognize. It needed to be secure, affordable, convenient, open, meaning that it needed to be not a closed-loop concept, and it needed to be, very robust for the environments that we were working in. All payment schemes share this kind of arrangement. You've got something in the middle. You've got rules, scheme rules, and then you have certain services that are provided. Instant transfers or whatever, these services are held within a platform. Then you have digital service providers that connect to that payment platform. This has been the pattern for ACH, for every major payment system that has happened to date. I think some of the new distributed payment systems take a different approach, but this is sort of the classic way that payment people think of how things work. Wallet and core processing for wallets, they can be done by third parties, right? And so sometimes you have third parties that are acting on behalf of the digital service provider and participating in the payment system. Sometimes in different regulated environments, these are called payment service providers or whatever. In Europe, they have a very different construct under PSD2. You can have these delegated entities that can do account opening and payment initiation. In India, it's a completely different stack. They have their own sort of ability to do delegated authority. And now in the US, you have FedNow that's doing this with the ability to do payment initiation by a delegated party that is not the bank, which is a change for the Fed and how they do payments. Anyway, I mention these things because this is sort of the legacy thinking. This is how things have been done. And we need to be aware of this progression. So as I mentioned, Modular Loop became an instance of the level 1 switch, became a way that it could be implemented by a country or by a set of merchants. And what we did is we said, okay, well, we need something to connect our Fineract instances to that Modular Loop instance, to that switch. So we developed something called the PaymentHUB. The PaymentHUB is a payments orchestration, multi-channel piece of technology that plugs right into Fineract. And then, of course, on the edge, you have the customers. So fast forward to today. Sorry for that long preamble. Putting on a different hat now. So I started the Myphos project. I am the lead of, I'm the vice president of Apache Fineract, whatever that means. And I'm starting a new company. We've started a new company that offers a scalable banking solution based on these projects that we've built. So the Apache Fineract project, the Myphos front ends, and the PaymentHUB that we built to connect to payment switches. And we are aiming to serve banks, credit unions, what have you, with a new banking core. And we're very committed to financial inclusion. One of the partners that we started to work with is another company I've been involved in called ExtoPay. These problem statements came from the Monetary Authority of Singapore's competition around central bank digital currencies, but they're actually problem statements that I think should resonate with this group, because they are about how do you do systems for financial inclusion. You need to have systems for people who don't have smartphones. There's no point in designing just for people who have smartphones. You need to have payments where the internet availability is minimal. Maybe it's touch and go. It needs to be secure. You need to have fraud detection. You need to be able to recover lost funds. It can't be, please send the funds back, which, by the way, is actually how Paytm behaves right now in India. Please send the funds back if it was sent wrong. I mean, it's kind of nuts. Personal data, you have to have a certain balance between how much information you must provide for KYC, but also not have so much data being shared that you have privacy issues. Data monopolies can be created if you don't pay attention to how you're designing your network. And so that's sort of the winner takes all things that you want to avoid. And then, of course, interoperability. I think people understand that. And then the retail concept here that they highlighted was that if you could create rewards and loyalty constructs, you could then have that be the adjacency that people make money on rather than the charging money for transactions, which is an important thing. So on the side over here, 70 to 90% of transactions are still in cash. Most people don't realize that that's actually what's going on globally, that when you look at all the volumes of cash, that's the reality. So when we think of all the payment instruments we have access to, we're in a very small percentage of people who have access to lots of different payment instruments. All right. So our solution with Exto is a hardware-enabled, partially offline, sharded transaction processing connected to a scalable high-volume account system, which can be operated in stand-in mode or could be the full system of record. And then that speaks to the legacy banking system. Let me parse this a little bit, and then we'll get into a quick product demo. So the Exto hardware wallets, this is a team of people that have been working on hardware systems for a number of years, and they've come up with this hardware platform. It's proprietary. It has the ability to do fingerprint training on the device, store it on the secure enclave, the secure element there, generating a cryptographic key, private key, public key infrastructure. And then there's a DLT there. It's actually a fork of the Ripple DLT. And so because of the way this is designed, this is if you will, the edge payment system that people have been looking for. It also allows you to do identification. I am now going to just briefly tell you some of the things that this system does and how our system at BaaSFlow interacts with it. So when you do account opening, what has to happen is that the DLT gets an initialization on the card. The account gets opened in the authoritative DLT in the cloud, and the account also gets created in our system, which becomes sort of the shadow account system. Then there's, issuance of additional tokens, which is the eCurrency part of this. And then there's transactions on the platform or on the network, and then there's transfers that happen off network. Let me see if I can get the demo to work here. Okay, thank you. This is about 4 minutes.
Consumers paying a merchant with an ExtoCard wallet scan a dynamic QR code to establish a secure Bluetooth connection and approve their payments. The payer and the payee post these transactions when connected to the network. For offline card-to-card payments, a payee can generate a payment request by entering an amount using the navigation touch wheel or from a preset list. Both payer and payee verify a random code to ensure a secure Bluetooth connection is established. The payee approves an expiration date for the payment, and the payer approves the transaction. Both payer and payee post these transactions when connected. Online mobile wallet users can pay each other in person with a simple scan of a QR code or remotely by sharing wallet addresses via SMS and email. ExtoPay is the result of 3 years of development by a world-class multidisciplinary team. ExtoPay is a disruptive digital payment system that provides universal access for consumers and merchants, reducing merchant transaction fees to negligible levels. Based on a modified version of XRP's distributed ledger, ExtoPay's backend is engineered to support permission DLT clusters, offline transactions, and an open-loop payment network. ExtoPay can interface with banking and payment systems via APIs to provide a novel e-money solution and act as a Tier 2 retail CBDC platform. An Interledger layer enables an open-loop payment system, allowing wallet holders of one bank to transact with wallets issued by another. ExtoCard and mobile wallets provide universal access to consumers and merchants with or without smartphones or connectivity. Deviceless consumers can access their accounts via plastic QR code cards and their verified biometrics on the merchant or agent cards. To onboard a user, the agent scans their photo ID and live facial recognition is performed. Once due diligence has been completed, the customer trains their fingerprints on their card or, for deviceless access, on the agent's card, and they set up a backup PIN. The user's ID is signed with cryptographically verifiable credentials loaded on the consumer's wallet, and users have control over data shared with counterparties. Compliance personnel have approval, audit, and reporting capabilities. For recovery of lost wallets, users can go through a similar KYC process. Unbanked users can cash in or cash out via connected agents or merchants.
Thank you for bearing with me on that one. So I've just got a few more slides here. Okay, so as I mentioned, it already described the XRP fork that we've done. What I would focus your attention on is that the interface with the banking is done through the BaaSFlow Fineract Mifos backend. And we're doing a stand-in, basically, for the banking system. I guess also the other thing here is that the out-of-order transaction piece was an important change to the XRP that we had to make. So just going back to the PaymentHUB, the PaymentHUB is a key part of what we've built around this, because the PaymentHUB allows us to, in a sense, act as a gateway between the DLT construct and the banking construct. So both are account or ledger systems, and the PaymentHUB, has workers that take the balances and maintain alignment and do reconciliation between the two. PaymentHUB is based on a bunch of open source things, and again connects to Mojaloop, and we've also just recently connected to a European ISO 222 real-time payment system. A little bit more on our architecture. So again, the BaaSFlow core is the open source Fineract pieces. Our PaymentHUB, what we already mentioned, that has event streaming and Kafka, and we then, of course, serve microbusinesses and consumers. Is the idea. Still, another block diagram. Sorry, I seem to have an affinity for block diagrams. Just to point out here that the PaymentHUB orchestration for the acts as the issuing gateway. The payment backend, or the Fineract backend, which is our backend system, that's where you have the addresses for the merchant or the operations. And so you have a one-to-one relationship with all the cards that are in existence. And then the DLT is the authoritative ledger for all of these things. Let's see, just a few observations. So when designing these systems, right, you have to make sure that you choose one of them as your authoritative source of truth. You can get into a lot of issues if you try to have both of them be the source of truth. We've chosen the DLT to be the source of truth, and then we have to do reconciliation on the banking side. We can operate in a stand-in mode, and when you do that, essentially the core banking system that's there at the bank has a single account. It's the FBO account, for benefit of account. And this is how all mobile money, by the way, operates, or not all mobile money, but a lot of mobile money systems operate with a FBO account, where you have another system that has all the subledger information. So our system at BaaSFlow, at the Fineract system, can be in that subledger modality, or it can operate as the entire system for the bank. The failure modes are why the orchestration engine is important, because you have to have the right amount of callbacks and retries and queuing so you can figure out what all the failure modes are and do reconciliation on them. And then I guess the last point that I was raising there is that the keys are associated with each account for recovery, and we store the public keys in our infrastructure. The private keys remain on the card. That's basically what I wanted to talk about. eCurrencies are, I think, not well understood outside of regulatory environments, and we might mean different things when we talk about eCurrencies. So anyway, any questions for me? Yeah.
Round of applause.